I've survived battles overseas, but nothing cuts deeper than disrespect in my own country.
They say respect is earned, not demanded. But one arrogant officer was about to learn that the hard way. When Officer Chad Whitaker stopped a man he thought was just another passerby, he had no idea he was humiliating a highly decorated U.S. general, General Darnell Jackson. What followed would shock everyone watching. And before we dive in, if stories of respect, justice, and powerful life lessons inspire you, make sure to subscribe and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. General Darnell Jackson wasn't just any man in uniform. He had served his country for over 30 years, leading troops through the toughest battles, mentoring young soldiers, and representing the very best of discipline and honor. To many, he was more than a general. He was a symbol of dignity. But here's the thing, General Jackson wasn't flashy. He didn't walk around demanding recognition. He carried himself with humility, often blending into the crowd when he was off duty. On that particular day, he had just returned from visiting a community program he supported for young veterans. Dressed in simple clothes, not in his military uniform, he decided to take a short walk near the base. To most people, he looked like an ordinary middle-aged man, strong but humble, calm but commanding when needed. Sergeant Monique Harris, who had served under him for years, often said, "The general doesn't need to say who he is. His presence speaks louder than words." And she was right. But that same humility sometimes became a reason why people underestimated him. Enter Officer Chad Whitaker, a young, newly promoted officer with a reputation for arrogance. Chad loved throwing his weight around, especially when it came to people he thought were beneath him. He believed authority was about control, not respect. And on this day, fate brought him face to face with the one man he should have respected above all others. The setting, a quiet road near the base's security checkpoint. General Jackson was minding his business, walking calmly when Chad spotted him. From a distance, Chad saw just another black man walking near the restricted area, and instead of approaching with respect or caution, he decided to show off his power. What he did next would set the stage for a lesson he would never forget. Officer Chad Whitaker tightened his grip on his belt as he walked toward the man he didn't recognize. His boots clicked sharply against the pavement, announcing his presence long before he spoke. "Hey, you! This is a restricted area. What are you doing here?" Chad's tone wasn't one of concern. It was dripping with authority and suspicion. General Darnell Jackson paused, turned his head slowly, and looked at him with calm eyes. He didn't flinch, didn't rush to explain himself. Instead, he simply said, "I'm just taking a walk, officer." But that answer wasn't enough for Chad. His arrogance flared. "Taking a walk? Round here? Do you think this is some kind of park? Show me your ID, now." Darnell sighed quietly, reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. Inside was his military identification, proof of who he really was. But before he could even open it, Chad snatched it from his hand. He glanced at it for a second, then smirked. "General Darnell Jackson? Don't play games with me. You expect me to believe some random guy in street clothes is a general?" Chad scoffed loudly, shaking his head. "No way. You people are always trying to pull something." The sting of those words cut deeper than the demand itself. "You people," a phrase loaded with bias. A phrase meant to strip away dignity. General Jackson remained calm, but there was a subtle shift in his eyes. He had faced worse insults on the battlefield, but there was something particularly ugly about facing it in his own country, from one of his own officers. By now, a couple of nearby soldiers noticed the commotion. They slowed down, watching carefully. Some recognized General Jackson instantly, but Chad, too caught up in his arrogance, didn't see their stunned faces. "Until I can verify who you really are." "You're not going anywhere," Chad barked, standing firm. "You're coming with me." A silence hung in the air. The bystanders exchanged glances, whispering. This wasn't just a misunderstanding anymore. This was disrespect unfolding in real time, and it was only the beginning. The air grew heavier as Officer Chad Whitaker squared his shoulders, clearly enjoying the spotlight. A few soldiers lingered nearby, whispering nervously, trying to decide whether to step in. They knew exactly who General Darnell Jackson was, but stepping between an arrogant officer and a four-star general, that was dangerous ground. Chad waved the ID in the air as if it were a cheap fake. "Look at this nonsense. General, please. If you were really a general, why are you walking around here dressed like this? No uniform, no insignia. Just another man who doesn't belong." Gasps spread through the small group of onlookers. One soldier muttered under his breath, "That's General Jackson. Is this guy serious?" Another shook his head. He has no idea who he's talking to, but Chad was too blinded by arrogance to notice. He leaned closer, his voice low but sharp. "I don't know what kind of scam you're pulling, but I'm not falling for it. Around here I give the orders, and you follow them." For the first time, General Jackson's expression shifted. His jaw tightened. He wasn't angry, at least not visibly, but the weight of decades of leadership, of sacrifice, of standing for justice, seemed to rise inside him. Before he could respond, Sergeant Monique Harris appeared from across the road. She froze at the sight, her mentor, her commanding officer, being treated like a criminal. "Officer Whitaker," she called out sharply. "What do you think you're doing?" Chad turned, clearly annoyed. "I'm doing my job. This man was trespassing." Monique's eyes narrowed. She looked directly at him, then back at Darnell, her voice steady. "Do you even know who you're talking to?" Chad chuckled, brushing her off. "Don't tell me you're in on this too." "I'm not stupid." The crowd grew larger, tension thickening. Some soldiers looked ready to speak up, but Chad's aggressive stance kept them silent. General Jackson finally broke the silence. His deep voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Son, you have no idea what kind of line you're crossing right now." The words hung in the air. Monique's face was pale. The soldiers were restless. And Chad, still puffed up with arrogance, smirked as if he had already won. But the truth was, the storm was just about to break. The standoff was unbearable. General Darnell Jackson stood tall, his calm presence clashing with the loud arrogance of Officer Chad Whitaker. The soldiers around them shifted nervously, whispering to one another. Everyone knew the truth, except the one man who needed to. Monique stepped forward, trying one last time. "Officer Whitaker, that is General Jackson. He has led this nation's forces longer than you've even worn that uniform." Chad's laugh echoed through the air. "General Jackson, this man? Do you take me for a fool? If he's really such a hero, where's the respect, huh? Why isn't anyone saluting him?" The crowd went silent. Some soldiers wanted to salute, but fear of escalating the situation froze them in place. The tension between respect and authority was tearing through the ranks. General Jackson's eyes scanned the group, then settled on Chad. His voice was measured, steady, and low. "Respect isn't something you demand, officer. It's something you earn. And right now you're showing this crowd exactly who you are." Chad's face reddened. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not in front of others. "That's it," he snapped. "You're coming with me. I'll make sure you regret trying to play games with me." He grabbed General Jackson's arm. Gasps erupted from the soldiers. Monique's jaw dropped. But before Chad could take another step, a deep, commanding voice thundered from behind the crowd. "Officer Whitaker, release him. Immediately." The soldiers snapped to attention, parting like a wave. Heavy footsteps approached. The look on the soldiers' faces said it all. Someone important had just arrived. Someone with the authority to end this in an instant. Chad froze, his grip still on the general's arm, his confidence shaken for the first time. Slowly, he turned his head toward the source of the voice, and when he saw who it was, his smirk finally vanished. The crowd of soldiers stood rigid as the figure stepped forward. It was Colonel Stevens, the commanding officer of the base, a man known for his strict discipline and razor-sharp sense of justice. His piercing eyes scanned the scene, then locked onto Chad's hand, still gripping General Darnell Jackson's arm. "Officer Whitaker," Colonel Stevens said, his voice heavy with authority, "do you have any idea what you're doing?" Chad stammered, his arrogance beginning to crumble under the weight of that tone. Sir, I was detaining this man." He claimed to be someone he's not. I was protecting the base. Colonel Stevens didn't blink. Instead, he turned toward General Jackson and snapped to attention, his right hand shooting up in the sharpest salute possible. "General Jackson, sir! Forgive the disgrace you've endured." The silence was deafening. Soldiers in the crowd immediately followed, saluting in unison, their voices echoing together. "General, sir!" Chad's face drained of color. His grip loosened, and his hand fell away from General Jackson's arm like dead weight. He looked around in disbelief, his arrogance now replaced with fear. General Jackson returned the salute calmly, then lowered his hand. His eyes met Chad's, not with anger, but with a deep, quiet disappointment. "You wanted respect, Officer Whitaker," Jackson said, his voice resonant and calm. "But respect isn't a weapon. It isn't something you force on others. It's something you live by. Every day." Chad swallowed hard, but his pride still clung to him. I didn't know, sir. I was just following procedure." Monique finally stepped forward, her voice sharp with controlled anger. "Procedure doesn't include racial profiling, officer. It doesn't include humiliating someone you should be honoring." The crowd murmured in agreement. Some soldiers looked directly at Chad with disdain. Others shook their heads, disappointed. Colonel Stevens' expression hardened. "Officer Whitaker, your behavior today is not only disgraceful, it's dangerous. You disrespected a decorated general of the United States military, and you revealed your prejudice in front of the men and women you're supposed to lead." He paused, his voice dropping to an icy calm. "You are relieved of duty." Effective immediately, the words hit like a hammer. Chad's mouth fell open, but no words came out. His arrogance, his authority, his illusion of power, all stripped away in a single moment. General Jackson stepped closer, his towering presence overshadowing Chad's shrinking figure. "Son, I've led soldiers across deserts, through jungles, into battles where not all of us came back. And I can tell you this, the uniform you wear doesn't make you a leader. Your actions do. Remember that if you ever hope to wear it again." Chad lowered his eyes, shame finally breaking through. He couldn't meet the general's gaze. Then, slowly, General Jackson turned toward the soldiers who had gathered. He looked at each of them, his voice carrying both weight and warmth. "Respect each other. Protect each other. Never forget, we wear this uniform for something greater than ourselves." The soldiers' voices rose together in affirmation, their respect for the general growing even deeper. As for Chad, he was escorted away quietly, his fall from arrogance complete. He had stopped a man he thought was beneath him, but instead he had exposed himself as unworthy of the very authority he abused, and for everyone who witnessed it, one lesson became crystal clear. True power doesn't come from titles or ranks. It comes from character. The scene settled, but the weight of what had just happened lingered in the air. For the soldiers who watched, it wasn't just an embarrassing moment for Officer Chad Whitaker. It was a living example of how arrogance and prejudice can destroy respect in seconds. General Darnell Jackson, calm as ever, chose not to humiliate Chad further. Instead, he walked away with dignity, leaving behind a silence that spoke louder than any punishment could. That's what true leadership looks like. Strength without cruelty, discipline without hate, authority without ego. The moral of this story? Respect is not about uniforms, ranks, or titles. Respect is about humanity. You don't have to wear stars on your shoulder or stripes on your sleeve to deserve it. Everyone, regardless of race, background, or status, deserves dignity. And when you forget that, you don't just fail others. You fail yourself. For Officer Chad, this was a turning point. Stripped of authority, he was forced to confront his own flaws. And for the rest of the soldiers, it was a reminder that leadership means serving, not ruling. General Jackson's story reminds us all that sometimes the greatest battles we fight aren't on foreign soil. They're right here, against ignorance, arrogance, and injustice. And winning those battles takes patience, wisdom, and courage. Now, if this story touched you, here's what I want you to do. Share it with someone who needs to hear about true respect. Leave a comment with your thoughts. Have you ever seen arrogance crumble in front of humility? I'd love to hear your story. And of course, if you believe in spreading lessons of justice, respect, and humanity, hit that subscribe button and join this community. Because together, we're not just telling stories, we're keeping these lessons alive. Remember, arrogance fades, but respect lasts forever. So until the next story, stay strong, stay humble, and never forget the power of dignity.